Hi, my name's Shane. I use she and her pronouns, and this is the first session of a game of the Yellow King RPG from Pelgrane Press, based on the short stories by Robert Chambers. This session was organised as part of the Gauntlet Gaming Calendar. The Gauntlet is an online community that plays and talks about a whole lot of mostly independent role-playing games and other RPGs. If you would like to find out more about the Gauntlet or get involved, come play some games with us, check out gauntlet-rpg.com. I'm going to ask the players to introduce themselves now. So, of course, your names and pronouns and anything that you'd like to tell us about yourself. But I guess I'd like to hear today just a little bit about why this game appealed to you, especially whether or not you've played a gumshoe game before, which this is, and whether or how you're familiar with the King in Yellow, either from the stories or from other games, from True Detective, whatever it might be. And we'll just go around the order that I have you on my screen. So, Puckett, do you want to go first?
Happy to. Hi there, my name's Puckett. I use he, him pronouns. I've been on the Gauntlet for a while. It's a weird thing, you know? And I've been excited about this game since you posted it, because I've been excited about this game since I actually saw that it was a game. Like I said before you started recording, I've had a copy of it sitting on my shelf for feels like a year or so now. My familiarity with the Chambers stories is kind of limited. It's just like I've glanced over them, but it's one of those things that it always just struck me as such a fascinating idea for fiction to stem in, to like break over to the real world, or maybe just fiction revealing the world that we don't see yet. As far as my familiarity with Gumshoe, I think I've played a Gumshoe game. I know I've read a couple. So not so much.
Cool. Thank you. Brandon?
Hi, I'm Brandon. I've been with the Gauntlets for about a year, and I'm not particularly familiar with Chambers' stories. I know the King in Yellow from Lovecraft and Lost Carcosa from Same, and I know that Lovecraft borrowed some of those from Ambrose Bierce, I think. And so I love the idea echoed in many of those stories of reality being a thin mask over strange goings on that people are ignorant of, or even sometimes pretend that are normal. And I think that's all wonderfully rich stuff. I've played Mutant City Blues. I ran it briefly, and that's most of my experience with Gumshoe.
Cool. And sorry, Brandon, what pronouns do you use?
Oh, he, him.
Thanks. And Nicholas?
Hi, I'm Nicholas. I have been with the Gauntlet since December, so maybe half a year plus a little bit. Matthew and Puckett and I have played together before. I run a lot of Call of Cthulhu with my home group, so I'm excited about Cthulhu mythos in general. Once I ran a module that had the yellow sign in it, and that was super fun. I've also heard that there's a play in these stories that people go mad reading the play. I think that sounds super fun. That's about the depth of my knowledge of this literature. And I did watch True Detective, and I signed up just to watch True Detective and then canceled my subscription.
Classic. And Nicholas, what pronouns do you use?
He, him.
Thanks. All right, and Matthew?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Matthew. I use he, him pronouns. According to my records, because this question comes up fairly often, I finally decided to check. I've been with the Gauntlet since August, but I didn't start playing until October. So I'm not that much longer in the Gauntlet than Nicholas. It just existed in my periphery because my partner Jamie has been playing since a year and a half. Anyway, what interested me in this game? Okay, so I really like the portrait, tableau, milieu, fancy French word that you painted on the game description. That really intrigued me. I'm already a fan of Shane's games as well, so like put that together, and the material. Even though I'm ever since I started working at a bookstore like 8 years ago, I became illiterate. so I don't really know like what's the works that this stuff references, but I do love a good like what Brandon said. I do love like that broad genre of what if reality is not real, kind of all of this is a mask kind of. I mean, heck, I love the comics of uh, Warren Ellis, who's canceled now. So this is all in my jam. Um, yeah, my experience with the gumshoe system. I have never run a gumshoe system, and I don't think I played. And when I played one, I don't think we ran it properly. like, this is like maybe 9 years ago or 8 years ago. I forget how long gumshoe. We played Mutant City Blues, but this is our first foray into games outside of the D20, or at least within the traditional rubric of these are your stats, these are your skills, and these are your special talents kind of structure. And it really threw us in for a doozy. But yeah, a half understanding of Gumshoe through Mutant City Blues, as well as our reading of the other books, Ashen Stars and all that stuff, is where my Gumshoe experience is.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. So just to answer, sorry, was someone going to ask something?
Oh, I just wanted to add, I don't think I answered the Gumshoe question. I've never played Gumshoe before.
Cool. So just to answer my own questions, so you know where I'm coming from, I haven't played any Gumshoe before. I think this is like a pretty simplified and stripped down version of it, which certainly suits my tastes. It's funny, Matthew, you saying this was like your first foray outside of more trad gaming, because this is, to me, much more traditional than the sort of games that I normally run. We're converging somewhere.
I think there's an argument for that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to start a new game just with a CATS procedure to set some boundaries and expectations and things like that. So CATS standing for concept, aim, tone, and subject matter. So I'm just going to whittle through my little screed here. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to add. So concept. I'm not totally sure how to introduce the concept of the King in Yellow itself, or himself, as the case may be. As people have mentioned, and as I mentioned, the King is a mysterious and terrifying presence in a set of 4 short stories by Robert Chambers, later referenced by Lovecraft and other writers. The King in Yellow is both a sort of individual, powerful person or creature or entity, and also a play about that person or entity, which maybe summons, maybe creates, maybe reveals him, and does, like you said, Nicholas, terrible things to the people who read it. The more specific concept for our game today is that you play American art students in Paris in the mid-1890s. That's a time with an incredible flourishing of early modern art and culture and political upheaval. And as we start the game, your characters will not have heard of the King in Yellow, but you've all started to notice that just some strange, inexplicable things going on around you. And you're going to be drawn in to investigate and learn more about those things. And as I think you all know, the broader concept for this game is that it takes us through a set of 4 settings. So 1890s Paris is just the first, the others being a fictional mid-20th century war, a sort of contemporary alternate history, and then a version of our sort of real-world present. Aim-wise, a big part of my aim, so at the moment we've got 5 sessions on the calendar, but I've told you all that I hope to run this as a quarterly over about 12 sessions. A big part of my aim for these 5 sessions is just to try out the system. So like I said, I haven't run any Gumshoe before. If it's going well, then I certainly will extend it to 12, and I hope that will happen. But if it turns out that I'm struggling with the system, or we're not having as much fun as we hoped, then I'm happy to just cap it at 5 and let it be done there. Sessions will be 3 hours each, with breaks roughly on the hour. Over 12 sessions, we'll average about 3 sessions per setting, but there'll probably be some variation in that. And I think today's session might be a bit shorter, just to help me find my feet a little, but we'll see how we go. In terms of tone, this will vary somewhat with the different settings. You know, a wartime setting is pretty different than Belle Epoque Paris. But I expect to be aiming broadly for the kind of creepy tone of the Chambers stories. It's an investigative game, but I don't necessarily see it as a game where you ultimately solve all the mysteries. I think that some things will remain mysterious and inexplicable even at the end of the game in an interesting and fun way. Subject matter. This is a horror game, so there's going to be violence. There's likely going to be some gore. There's probably going to be some body horror. The King in Yellow stories are about the breakdown of reality and identity, so those kind of themes are likely to be present. Game also has a mechanic for mental harm the characters experience in facing, these terrors. I think that mechanic avoids some of the ableism that creeps into other games that have things like kind of sanity mechanics and so forth. It may involve some loss of agency for your characters, which I know is not for everyone, but I think that's, if that's a concern for everyone, then we'll talk about it in Lines and Veils. But it's quite a limited and specific. I hope that it will work for people. For the Paris material in particular, there will be references to drinking and possibly substance use, and there may be references to political violence. Both right and left-wing terrorists were active in Paris around these times. Those are things that I'm happy for you to line or veil as well if they're not good for you. If we move on to the other settings, then we'll come back and talk more about subject matter issues that might be specific to those settings. But I think that's it for now. I did just want to clarify some subject matter that we're not going to go into. We're not going to look at sort of real life prejudices and discrimination that were common to the area. So regardless of your character's gender or race or sexuality, they will be able to participate fully in the game, in Parisian life, all those things. And if we do end up including something like, say, right-wing extremists, we're not going to go into the kinds of anti-Semitic views that they would have held in real life or anything like that. Connected to subject matter are safety tools, obviously. So we'll talk about Lines and Veils now. But can I just ask, were there any questions about anything that we've talked about so far? Anything that anyone wants to add? All right. So I'll get you all, if you haven't yet, to open up the Character Keeper and navigate to the Safety tab. One thing I should mention is that I made this Character Keeper. I am by no means good with Google Sheets, so if you notice anything that's not working, please let me know. But hopefully it'll go okay. I see some of you have started to fill that out. Just for clarity, a line is a topic that isn't going to come up in the game at all. We're not going to include it. A veil is a topic that may be mentioned in the story but isn't going to be a focus. That we'll either skip over quickly or fade to black on. And Ask First is something that you'd just like us to check in about before it comes up in the game. You'll also see on the right-hand side there's a little romance matrix to indicate your preferences about whether or not romance be a part of the game. I think for this game in particular, it's not very likely that we're going to have a lot of romantic subplots, but helpful to fill that out nonetheless. So I'll just give you a minute to fill out your Lines, Veils, your Asks First, your romance things, and when you're happy with the list, if you could just put an OK in the chat so I know that you're done. All right. So we have a list of Lines and Veils there. I'd just like to ask you all to have a read over that now, just so to acquaint yourself with what are on those lists, and to remind yourself of that anytime that you need to. The other safety tools that we'll be using are the X card. So if anything comes up in the game that is uncomfortable or unfun for you for whatever reason, you can say the words X card, you can type an X into the chat, you can make an X with your hands, whatever you'd like to do to signal that, and we'll just remove that content. We'll go back, we'll work around it, we'll continue the game without the uncomfortable material. The Open Door also is a safety tool that we'll be using. If you need to leave for any reason, you can just leave. If you can tell us that would be great. If you can tell us whether you're coming back, that would be great. But if you just need to leave, whether that's a delivery at the door, a bio break, or just leaving the game and not coming back. All of those things are totally fine. Just do what you need to do. We're also playing under the Gauntlet Community Code of Conduct. I can post a link if anyone needs to refamiliarize themselves with that. I also like to emphasize that we all have a shared responsibility for safety at the table. So it's always welcome for a player in my games to check in about anything. If you notice or you think that we might be getting close to a line or a veil, or if you notice that any of the other players look uncomfortable, please check in. That's always welcome. Doesn't have to be a safety thing. Just if someone seems like they're not having a good time, isn't getting as much spotlight, whatever it is, just let us know and we'll work something out. But in particular with that, often I won't be watching the stream while we're playing. I'll be looking at notes and things. So if anyone marks an X in the chat or does a visual X of some kind that I might not see, if you notice that, please verbalize it so that I'm aware. That is the end of my introductory screed. Does anyone have any questions, or shall we move on to making characters?
Let's make some characters. Clearly, Brandon and Puckett have got it going already.
Nice. So I guess I'll just explain a little how this is going to work. So mechanically, the main decisions that you're going to make in character creation are your field and your general kit. Your field is going to give you a set of investigative abilities. Those will be relatively unique to your character. The way investigative abilities work in the game is that if you have the ability and there's a clue you can find with that ability, you find it. You never have to roll for your investigative abilities. You also have 2 pushes associated with your investigative abilities. You spend a push or mark a push to just get some sort of benefit other than a clue from that ability. We'll talk more about examples of those maybe later. Your general kit is going to give you values for your general abilities. So everyone has the same set of general abilities, but you'll have different ratings in them, different numbers of points that you can spend, and you do roll dice for your general abilities. So Brandon, I see, has taken Muse as a field. The first thing for everyone to do is just figure out what field they want to take. If you look at the character options tab, that sets out what abilities are associated with which kit. And yeah, just the other thing I should mention, you'll see that some of the investigative abilities are in italics. That means they are interpersonal abilities. You don't really need to know what that is at this point, but it does have some mechanical impact at some points in the game.
I am not sure what a belletriste is.
Belletriste is like a 1890s blogger, like a writer, sort of a literary type, knows about, writes think pieces and things like that. In the drive that I shared with you all, there's a ability descriptions PDF that will tell you in more detail what the specific abilities are, both investigative and general.
Does anybody feel like really compelled toward any one of these fields or anything? I mean, is it easier to just like kind of maybe figure out who really wants to do something first?
Sure. Are you volunteering? Do you have your eye on a particular field?
I absolutely don't. I got as far as a name and a picture.
The picture's great. All right. Nicholas, you're looking at portrait painter, is that right?
Nice.
I'm thinking about a portrait painter. That seems like the quintessential role of someone who would be studying the arts.
Yeah. So you'll see also that there are 7 fields, and that's going to leave some investigative abilities untaken. So once everyone's picked a field, we'll go back and you'll be able to pick out some of the extra investigative abilities that haven't been taken. Matthew, did you have a field in mind?
If I understand correctly, because we're doing the art students thing, it's really just this little rectangle over here that we're focusing on, right?
Just the top rectangle at the moment.
Yeah.
For investigative abilities.
Let's see. Yeah. What is? Let's see.
If there's one you want to ask about, you should ask, because probably other people have the same question.
Oh yeah, sure. No, I was checking the ability, to steal, but then I remember you told me there's a PDF, so I opened it up, and steal is the smoldering look in your eyes, so an implacable surety of your posture, command of obedience of the weak-minded. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but make a push to gain a non-informational favor from a person you have cowed.
Oh, I like that I'm a former med student who's now a portrait painter. That sounds fun.
Yeah, some good anatomical knowledge there for your
Yep.
your portraits. Sorry, Brandon, you're muted again, or we're not hearing you.
Yeah, all right. I'm committed to taking the Belle Epoque.
Here we go.
I originally thought of the portrait painter, but I think I'm excited to see what knowing Nicholas, I'm excited to see what he does with that one.
And what was yours again? The Bellatrix?
Bellatrix.
Belle Epoque, I think.
Yes,
I have no idea.
it is.
Really?
It's Belle Lettres. It comes
Fine
from
writing.
yes, Belle Lettres, literally fine writing. But they were you would have written letters to be printed in periodicals, magazines, or newspapers. Arguing points of view, or reviewing just performances and such like that. I mean, it's
Oh, you mean not like my current, not like it's a parallel universe version of my current job. So yeah, I'm down with that.
well, it implies a refinement rather than not a newspaper reporter sort of person, but rather someone writing opinions of high art, or writing travelogues were one of the things that people wrote. They would travel to places and write about them in
Tocqueville or something.
Yeah, that sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, someone on a trip to the Orient, might be just describing the things that he or she saw in ways, and if they, she was like a blogger almost.
Yeah, I like it. And a trip to the Orient during the time when it was still okay to call it the Orient.
When it was a big mysterious thing to most people.
Yeah.
Most of your contemporaries, at least.
But I'm going to. My dream is to go somewhere even more scandalous, more saucy. The Americas.
Oh.
God. Anyway, all right. I'm set.
I think we're all from the Americas, so
that's the joke.
So if we have a Belle Latrice, a muse, and a portrait painter, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking left field. I'm thinking she's a sculptor. Her dad is in the coal mining business and made his money that way and sent her off to school so that she could be refined and get a good marriage. And instead she learned how to swing a hammer and work in marble. So kind of like coal mining.
certainly a rather physical endeavor.
And
your father would be displeased.
And now I'm just looking. It's like, do I need a different picture?
Oh, I don't know. Yours seems like a very capable young woman.
Right, but it's like it'd be really nice to find something of that era with a woman holding a hammer in one hand. I don't have.
Would she carry the hammer for the portrait, though?
You know what? You're absolutely right. This is something that's being sent home to father to illustrate how well she's doing at becoming a woman of refinement and culture.
Right.
And the second, it's taken care of, hats off, the jacket's off, sleeves are up, and she's covered in marble dust. Okay, yeah, you have a very good point there.
All right. So the next thing that I want to do now that those are picked is that we have 3 kits that no one has chosen. So we don't have an architecture student, a landscape painter, or a poet. And we're just going to go left to right across the character keeper a couple of times, and I'll ask each of you to pick one of the investigative abilities that nobody has yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That was in the. Sorry. That was in the rules for most of the other Gumshoe games, I think.
Yeah, the idea is that you're supposed to have all or most of the abilities to avoid getting bogged down. So Matthew, Matthew, you're up first. Do you want to just grab one of the untaken abilities?
Let's see. I think I want the architecture officialdom. Let me see what officialdom is. Yeah.
There's one that fits particularly with my character, but we'll see what everybody picks.
Oh no, I think my cat is sitting on a mouse, so she's blocking the inputs.
It's a mouse and a cat. What else do you expect your cat to do?
I know.
She
Let its inputs run free?
But doesn't just bat it around and select random things for you.
Yeah, I'll take officialdom. That sounds like a right thing to do.
Pocket?
I am taking a look at the PDF at the moment.
Sure.
They're also available under character options in the Keeper.
Outstanding. Nice. I was not aware of that. Okay, thank you for the heads up. Okay, so... Oh. Brandon, were you thinking occultism fit with the Muse?
No, so please feel free to take it.
Okay. Yeah. Ada has fallen in with some weird characters over the years. Perhaps Father shouldn't have been so ready to send her off to boarding school.
Interesting. I definitely think that we'll hear more about that as we continue. Brandon, what ability are you going to take for Caroline?
For Caroline is Demi-Monde, for sure.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Because she's she's been in the Demi-Monde. Not here in Paris, but the types repeat no matter where you are.
And Nicholas?
I need help figuring out what's on the table.
So, most of the ability, so the kits that haven't been taken are the architecture. Sorry, if you're looking at character options.
Yeah.
Yep. So, architecture student, landscape painter, poet, and portrait. Wait. Poet and sculptor? No, sorry, I'm getting confused now. Which ones? It's just architecture, landscape painter, and poet that haven't been taken.
Right.
Out of those, Demi-Monde, occultism, and officialdom have been taken. So the other abilities remain available.
So a single ability from those broader categories.
Yeah.
Art history.
Cool. All right.
Art history is actually on the sculptors as well, so it's duplicated.
Natural history, then.
Cool.
Is that not an overlap?
Yeah, I don't think anyone has that. I think art history is the only one that's duplicated.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhat oddly. I guess it makes sense for art students.
It actually pops up on landscape painter as well.
Yeah.
All right, so just going through again, same thing. Matthew, another investigative ability?
Let's see. Oh, I wanted to ask where did you get the general kit, but in the meantime, I'll focus on this. Let's see. Another investigative. Does it have to be from the art student still, right?
Yes.
All right. Did anyone take architecture yet?
No, we don't have architecture.
No. Let's do it.
Cool. Paco, one more?
Weirdly enough, I think she's got a background in some kind of machinery, so I'll take technology. I mean,
Very
we
appropriate.
gotta have an understanding of at least blocks and tackle to move large, chunks of granite and marble around. So
You've probably operated a jackhammer or two as well, I imagine.
it's steam powered, but yes.
Steam powered jackhammer. There you go.
Brandon?
Intuition.
Nice.
Mm.
And Nicholas, one more?
And so I'm picking from the landscape painter, or I can go outside of the landscape painter.
Yeah, any ability that hasn't been taken yet.
I'm going to go with negotiation.
All right, sweet. So if you're taking an interpersonal skill like negotiation, just make sure that you mark it in italics so we know that it's a interpersonal ability, because that will that's annoying. The italics haven't transferred over when you've from the character option from the data tab to the investigative tab.
No.
I guess it's reasonably easy to work out what counts as an interpersonal ability. It's pretty intuitive. Cool. So everyone's picked, it looks like, a general kit. If you're not happy with that exactly and you want to move some points around, you're welcome to do that. As long, I think the note on rating explains this. You need to keep your total at 32, and the game recommends that you don't go below 6 in composure or fighting if you want a character who will actually survive the game.
Or maybe 5, since one of the kits has a 5.
Well, I'm just telling you what the game text says. So,
where's the general kit descriptions? I couldn't find it.
So they're in the same PDF. You just need to scroll down.
Okay.
After the investigative abilities.
All right. Here we go.
And so, do we have points to distribute between the general abilities, or?
So, you start. You can just adjust your rating. So if, for example, you wanted 1 more point in athletics, you could take 1 point off riding, or you can move around the points like that.
Okay.
But you don't have points per se.
And then, what are the emphases that you were saying we needed to?
Yeah. So the game text suggests that you avoid going below 6 in fighting or composure. Brandon's pointed out that one of the kit does start you off with less than 6 in fighting, so
I thought
it's not a hard and fast rule.
Yeah, I'm going to take a gamble with that. We'll see how far a 5 gets me.
Yeah.
No less than 6 in fighting or composure. Got it.
So I might just flag the next thing that we're going to do while people are still sort of shifting some points around.
Quick question.
Yeah.
With the abilities, what is mechanics?
Yeah, so the way that you test a general ability is that I set a difficulty for a task that you're trying to accomplish. Per the rules, I don't tell you what that difficulty is, but I think most of the time I probably will. 4 is the typical difficulty. You roll 1d6 and you choose before you roll how many of the points from your pool you're going to spend to add to that roll.
Okay.
Then the number of points you spent plus the dice roll, if that meets or exceeds the difficulty, then you succeed. Generally, it's just going to be success or failure, but there are some cases where a more notable success gets you extra benefits.
Okay.
And fighting has a whole separate, more complicated set of mechanics that go with it.
All right. Anyway, continue, please.
Oh, yeah. So I was just going to say that the next thing that we're going to do, and I'll give you some more time to move your points around, is to choose a drive. Basically, your drive is why you're going to act like the protagonist in a horror novel. So what quality you have that is going to drive you to investigate terrifying things. There's no list to choose from there, so it's just a free choice. We're looking for anything from a word to a phrase to a sentence that describes like what it is about you that sees you throw yourself into danger. We'll skip over relationships for now, and we'll come back and do that last, I think. It just makes more sense that way. So if you have an idea, just go ahead and type it in. If you want to bounce it off people, feel free to tell us what you're thinking about.
Is the drive chosen, or we're making it up?
Yeah, the drive is just a free choice. So just anything from a word, phrase, sentence or two, just describing why you're so driven to investigate terrible things.
So I'll talk through mine, and maybe it can be turned into a sentence. So I don't have a name yet, but assuming that I have some sort of family that I'm related to that is kind of prominent physicians, prominent scientists, and here I am with my kind of pre-med background, but then went to portrait painting school. I think that I am really rebelling against that very structured scientific view of the world and really embracing a follow your heart type of a mindset. And I think that maybe that can provide that drive.
Yeah, I think that works. How would you boil that down to a sentence? Like a seeker of mysteries or something like that?
I'm just going to put follow your heart, I think, as kind of the condensed version.
Yeah, that sounds good. Matthew, do you have an idea for a drive?
I'm trying to figure this one out, actually. It's all spinning in my head, but I'm wondering if a drive were in being interested in... It sounds loony already. It just sounds loony when you
I have to hear it. Say it.
That my character is driven to peel back, the truth of the world. I don't know, the surface that... I'm trying to come up with a backstory to justify it, but it's she already has an interest in secrets and knowing what imaginations drive the world. And I think there's a very thin connection between understanding politics and understanding art, and trying to understand the cosmic sense of the world. That's what I'm getting at. The world is a puzzle box to her, I guess.
Cool. I mean, maybe just curiosity or something like that works to
insatiable curiosity.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fast road to insanity, but we'll see.
We'll see. So the next thing, pretty much the last thing before we get to relationships, is that juiced peculiar business. And the rules tell me that I should start with the player who arrived first to the game session, which I believe was Puckett in this instance. Your juiced peculiar business is a recent event so eerie, so inexplicable, that the character has yet to mention it to anyone else, including members of the main cast. So you have very wide authority to just make up something that sounds fun to you. The kind of purpose of this in the game, partly it's to provide me with adventure hooks that I can work with, but partly it's just to flesh out a creepy, mysterious world.
I mean, obviously that juiced peculiar business has to be that strange, misshapen man I saw leaping across the rooftops after dark. He seemed to be headed to that cathedral.
Nice.
quite odd. I didn't get a feeling of danger from him. It's not as though he was, well, he wasn't a second storyman, obviously, and he wasn't trying to peep in any windows, but still strange to see someone that oddly shapen move so quickly.
Excellent. So now we'll just go left to right across the keeper. Brandon, do you have an idea for Caroline's Deuced Peculiar Business?
Oh gosh, the same latitude.
Yeah.
Yes. There's an art. There is a collector who is known to have a private collection of very interesting and beautiful art. And he recently had a showing for a very select group. And amongst the rare paintings and lovely sculptures, there was this this carving of unspeakable ugliness that struck horror into me and everyone else there that I can tell. Attempts to talk to anybody about it have been entirely unfulfilled.
Nice.
But at the time, everyone must have been affected by it, but nobody said a word. Not a word as to how this, it was as if a chef had served a sumptuous 9-course meal with a rotting table with a rotting corpse in the middle of it. I mean, it just and no one made a comment or said a word.
I love it. All right. Nicholas, do you have a name for your character? If it's helpful, I did include a PDF of suggested names in the folder.
I'll check that out. I had already figured out Arthur was probably a fine first name. It's on the list. I like that.
Right.
Whitney. We're going to go with Hartner. Oh, wait, no, that's not a last name. Gender neutral given name.
I think Arthur Whitney is a fine name.
Okay.
And what is Arthur's Deuced Peculiar Business?
Yeah, so that's like a strange thing that I witnessed or experienced, right?
That you haven't told anyone about yet.
I think I have accepted a commission for a painting, and I've sat in front of this elderly man and tried painting him like 3 times now. And every time, like 2 hours into the portrait, I just have to tear it up because every time, instead of painting him, I'm painting what looks like a demon. And I cannot understand why it is that I just can't get it right.
That's awesome.
Yes. Okay.
Loving that. All right. And Matthew, do you have a name for your character?
I do not, but I have already filled out my Deuced Peculiar Business.
All right. Well, tell us about your Deuced Peculiar Business.
In each and every arrondissement in Paris, if I pronounced that correctly, arrondissement, there is a building that has come undone before my very eyes, shifting into an ethereal scaffolding, a lattice of the unreal before resolving back to something normal.
Wow, that's poetic sounding.
So can I ask, is it that in it, like wherever you go, some building that happens to be there comes undone in this way, Or is it that as you travel Paris, you keep seeing the same building that then becomes undone in different ways, or in the same way?
I left this open so that
Okay.
you could build, but from my perspective, like there's only one building I have seen. By my counting, there's only one building I've seen in each and every arrondissement that does that.
Okay.
And the
That's
building is not necessarily the same building or kind of building. It's not like all hospitals or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love all of these.
But it can be if you want it. If you want to tell a creepy story about hospitals.
We may well get to a creepy story about a hospital, but this is good stuff to start with. So this isn't something that we need to do during character creation, but just since we're down here to explain a mechanic, cards are the kind of way that we track your harm, or something like hit points or what have you. This will vary slightly from setting to setting, but in Paris, there are two types of card: injury cards for physical harm, shock cards for mental harm, spiritual harm. If you ever have 3 cards of either type, your character is retired from play. So not 3 total, but 3 injury cards or 3 shock cards. We'll give you an example when we start to play, but each card will come with a discard condition, so it will tell you something how it affects you and how you can get rid of it. The last part of character creation that we need to do is to set out your relationships. So this is about the other members of the group, and each of you are going to name one other member of the group who you rely on and one other member of the group who you feel protective towards. This doesn't have any mechanical weight. It's just about creating a sense of group cohesiveness as we get started. Let's just go left to right across the character keeper for this. Matthew, can I get you first of all to name someone that you either rely on or seek to protect?
Should we describe our characters a little first?
Yeah, that is an excellent idea, Brendan. My apologies. Let's do that first. So instead, Matthew, can I get you to introduce your character?
All right. I think I'm going with the name Daisy. I just have to pick a surname. Yeah. Daisy is I guess someone who they're all Americans, right? So Daisy is I don't know how to come up with a description. Daisy is like an aspiring art critic, and I'll pass for now. Let me try to get my thoughts in order before I embarrass all of us. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Pocket, we've already heard a bit about Ada, but do you want to tell us some more about her?
Oh, I would love to.
Sorry, I shouldn't have laughed so hard.
Oh, that's quite all right. It's quite a silly story. I mean, it's a tragic story, but it's quite silly because you see, Daddy still continues to believe that women are the weaker sex, despite the fact that my mother died of consumption that would have taken him out several years before. He just wouldn't have survived. He fancies himself to be quite strong, and yet the sounds that man makes when he tries to rise up from bed in the morning are just, they are things no mortal should ever hear. At any rate, my name is Ada, and my mother died when I was quite young. And Daddy, being that he had absolutely no interest in being a parent and thought that women were fit for that sort of thing, promptly sent me to boarding school. I received, well, as good of an education as anyone of Daddy's means could afford, I suppose. And I went to private schools, and I met interesting people, and I learned interesting things. And every so often I found teachers and students who didn't think that the best thing a woman could hope for was a good match and needlepoint. And so I learned more interesting things. And then I managed to convince Daddy that he should allow me to go off to Paris to study, because that's where, of course, a woman of refinement would go, naturally. And he was only too happy to send me off because, once again, it meant I was out of his hair. And that's where I really started studying sculpture. And I learned the true joy of swinging a hammer. And I'm not proud to admit this, but I have in fact made a bit of money for myself on the side by forging Greco-Roman sculptures. I have learned quite a bit about how to break a nose by swinging a hammer just so to make it look like that nose on a statue had been, well, broken through the sands of time as opposed to the accomplished and skilled hands of an artisan.
Amazing. Is there anything else that you want to tell us by way of introduction?
I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone would like to ask any.
I'd like to know about the sculpture that you're most proud of, kind of your thesis, if you will.
It wasn't a sculpture so much. I made a wax mold of what I remember my mother's face looking like, and I turned it into a brooch.
Oh, that's sweet.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you wear this brooch?
Every moment I'm awake. I can't say that it's actually what she looked like because it has been some 20 years, but it's what I remember, and that's good enough.
Any young man in your life?
What use would a woman such as myself have with a man?
Oh, they're very useful, dear.
Only if you need them to buy things. And I don't. Manipulating them, perhaps, but it's strange. They seem to lose interest when they realize that I can do things that they can't. They tend to think of sculpture as a man's work. And they tend not to believe that a woman can do it.
Well, yeah, and and your handshake is probably firmer than theirs.
It is not my fault that weak handshakes have become the vogue in this city.
True, and some of them are dead fishes. But one mustn't tell them that.
All right. Well, Brandon, would you like to introduce Caroline?
Yes, hello, I'm Caroline, or Caroline, as they say here. Isn't that charming? It's the same name, it's just pronounced differently. They pronounce everything differently here. And they have so many inventive ways to tell people to go get stuffed. I've learned them all. Not that I necessarily share this with anyone, other than a few confidants. But I don't know who my mother and father were. And I was raised in an orphanage in New York, up in Harlem. And until I escaped, and I use that word quite deliberately, to make my living as a young woman can, as they say here in fashionable circles. I shan't use the other word among refined company such as here. Fortunately, Teddy came along. That's Theodore Oglethorpe, who one of my clients who decided that I had a talent as a social chameleon, as he put it. I think George Bernard Shaw would have been proud, from what I understand. He did a Pygmalion on me, at least taught me how to lose my lower class New York way of speaking, and how to pretend to really fit in anywhere at all. I've left Teddy behind at this point in nice circumstances. He really was a charming fellow, and have made my way here because life burns hotter in Paris than it does anywhere else. I should have died quite a long time ago, to judge by any of my contemporaries. But I'm alive and they're dead, which only goes to show that life is completely unfair and arbitrary. I love men and women. They are marvelous people for getting the things that you want, if you know how to stroke their egos or play upon their whatever it is they particularly want. And everyone wants something. But Teddy used to say that my culture was still really only skin deep. Scratch me hard, and you'd still find the gutter rat that I used to be. And I suppose he's right. But let's live for now, and surfaces are really all that matters, isn't it? Don't they? I think so. Anyway, you're a bunch of lovely people, and I'm delighted to be with you.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions for Caroline or Brandon?
Speechless. That was amazing.
The character intros have set a high bar so far.
I will not live up to that bar, but I'll try.
All right. Well, Nicholas, do you want to tell us about Arthur?
Yes. So Arthur comes from a fairly well-to-do family, doctors and lawyers, and was following the path laid before him when he decided that all of that really didn't fulfill. So he dropped out of med school, lied to his family for a while, saying, "Oh yeah, no, I'm still going to class. Don't worry about it." Got in with some artistically inclined people, won a contest for a portrait, and was able to get a scholarship for study in Paris. So that's kind of the backstory. Don't really like talking to the family at all. I'll admit that much. I am the master of a weak handshake. And yeah, portraits and trying to basically escape from a much more structured reality back home. That's what I know.
Cool. Does anyone want to ask Arthur or Nicholas anything?
What is a weekend shake?
A weak handshake?
Weak handshake.
Oh, weak handshake. I think it's a weekend shake.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
The latest dance craze taking Paris by storm.
I thought it was a euphemism for something a little more.
It sounds a little risque, does it not?
It does. It does.
Yes, everything does if you say it right.
Say it right.
Is Arthur under the grip of any substances that we should be aware of?
Oh, yes.
None that you should be aware of.
Does Arthur have any money that he does not tip to dancers?
Yes, absolutely. Only 50% goes to dancers. That's kind of a hard rule.
And what part of Paris does Arthur live in?
I don't know about Paris. Nicholas does not know about Paris, so I am not certain.
So the game suggests that you all find your accommodation in the Latin Quarter.
Definitely the Latin Quarter. That's where I'm hanging out.
It is the artistic area. Would you paint my portrait?
For the right price, I will paint any portrait. And possibly if we're going to school together, I would do it just for free, just as practice. Are we going to school together? Is that a thing?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. So art students, I think, is more of like a description of your milieu than necessarily your individual institutional situation. I guess it's like we're not going to be setting a lot of scenes around schools or anything like that. So I guess it's up to you to decide, are you at school? Are you just in that scene or crowd?
So, Caroline, it will depend. If you find me at a park next to a lake on a Saturday morning, I will paint your portrait just for walking up and having a conversation. If you find me at one of the events that my father has arranged for me, I will do it for a fee. So it depends on where the intersection occurs.
Oh, your father does salons, does he?
Does somewhat?
Salons?
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. So Matthew, are you ready now to introduce Elizabeth?
Yeah, so I'm playing Elizabeth Archer. The idea I've got for the character is that she is of money and she is she's totally fine with it. She's totally happy, great with it. And she, at a younger age, read read a lot and decided that she wanted to be a writer, but not the usual kind. Like, she was inspired by the travelogues and by sort of like city city studies of other authors, and decided that cities are the future. Cities are what she wants to write about, and everything that happens in between them, for they are the life and vibrancy of a nation, of any nation. And in fact, maybe let's just decide that her family is a big agricultural titan. Does that exist? Like,
Sure.
the Archer farms cover all over a big swath of whichever state she calls home. Yeah. And when she's there in Paris, she I lost my train of thought. She wants to be, she's driven really just by the act of writing. Like, she doesn't know what she really wants, only that she wants to be good at it, that she wants to beat anyone at it. And, maybe that leads her to come up with writing that is perhaps more like maybe silly and frivolous in its boldness. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. And that's pretty much Elizabeth Archer.
Loving it. Any questions for Elizabeth?
You said you're like totally, absolutely fine with the money.
Yeah. Like, I think, okay, sorry, I realize now what I was trying to say, but I jumbled the words for that. What I was trying to say is that this is a woman, Elizabeth is the kind of person who is comfortable living on the dime of her parents' money. You know what I mean? So there's no class self-consciousness. There's no, she's. I wouldn't say she behaves like your spoiled caricature, but there's definitely a recklessness and lack of thought to her finances. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you like to write about?
Right now, as we start this game, definitely the architecture of Paris.
Are you publishing, or are you writing, or are you aspiring to publish?
Aspiring to publish. I think what she's doing now is she's probably also looking for a mentor. And by mentor, I mean someone who can, get her into the good graces of publishing.
Of course.
Yeah. All right, so let's just do our relationships and then we'll take a quick break. So Matthew, I'll get you to go first. Can I get you to name someone in the group who you rely on or someone you seek to protect?
Okay, I think I want to rely. I already know exactly who. I want to rely on Arthur, and I want to protect Caroline. And the way I see, if I understand your characters correctly, I think with Caroline, Elizabeth is oblivious to to any any flaws in Caroline's character. She sees only the best in Caroline, and in that sense, she seeks to protect her and be all oh no, innocent, delicate flower or whatever, all that stuff. And that's, she sees Caroline as a little sister, even though that's a largely unearned status.
Sounds like Caroline has really pulled the wool over your eyes.
Sounds
If I understand Caroline.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely. But that's
Yeah.
Caroline. But Caroline, Caroline feels compelled to do that. It's not something she does out of malice.
Yeah, she doesn't. Yeah,
She feels that if she stops swimming, then she'll drown.
Yeah, and Arthur.
I think we both come from old money, so there's like a familiarity there, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she sees Arthur as one of her own, one of her kind. Whether or not he reciprocates that sentiment is something else altogether. But definitely, like, if chips are down, she'll be like, "Well, brother."
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. And who does Ada rely on and seek to protect?
Well, obviously, I seek to protect Arthur. I mean, look at the man.
Yes, look at him.
The breeze caused by a falling feather would give him consumption. Arthur doesn't understand how lucky he is to have fallen with a group of people who more or less are concerned with his well-being.
Too true.
He does not understand. You're correct.
And who does Ada rely on?
I think that's obvious. Caroline. I mean, she's obviously a woman of resourcefulness. She's obviously capable. She understands there are certain things about, how do I put this? Socializing that have somewhat escaped me. Perhaps I have not become as refined as Father would have wished. But Father isn't here, is he?
Caroline, who do you rely on and seek to protect?
I rely on Ada because most women I see as rivals and most men as people to be manipulated. She's one of the few I actually want to be my friend because she is honest and does what she wants rather than what everybody expects her to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I too have a soft spot for protecting Arthur, but I'm glad Ada has pitched in on that one so that the poor fellow doesn't, because I think he's probably doomed no matter what. So I think Elizabeth needs to be protected from rushing headlong into situations she doesn't understand, because charming girl that she is, she has the sensibilities of her class.
Nice. And Arthur.
I rely on Ada. She is strong in so many ways that I am not. And, sometimes you can't open a door. You need someone to help you with that. Sometimes, she's just the best person to rely on. You can count on Ada.
Arthur, don't feel bad about that. I told you that doorknob was sticky.
I know. It was so bad. And then I seek to protect... I feel like Elizabeth would be the one... Well, but Caroline with her... this is hard. I think that I should seek to protect Elizabeth, but Caroline's words have swayed me, and I truly seek to protect Caroline.
You see, Ada, your armor is your own self-possession. My armor is other people.
I was going to say, does he seek to protect you because you have manipulated him into thinking that you need protection?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
So let me know if that works for you.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Is it Arthur with an OR or UR?
It is with a OR, I think. I think I copied that from this book. Let's look at this real quick. AR, UR. It is with a UR. Let me correct that.
Cool. So that's all our character creation stuff done. Does anyone have any questions about any of the character parts or mechanics that you wanted to clear up before we take a break and then start play? Obviously, you're also welcome to ask any questions that come up as we're playing. I'd like to take a slightly longer break so I can wrangle some of this into a starting setup. So if we come back at 1/2 the hour, does that work for everyone?
Mm-hmm.
Fine
Yes.
by me.
All right, great. So I'll see you in just over 15 minutes. All right. So we're going to start out with your characters gathered at your favorite cafe and drinking establishment, Le Veau Gras. I apologize. I will no doubt continue to mispronounce and mangle French words and phrases throughout this part of the series. Probably early afternoon, I think. All of you are a little the worse for wear for last night's big night. Arthur, what did you do or what happened to you last night that you're hoping nobody will mention?
It was a bender evening, and so I woke up in a gutter, and I just hope that, they'll let last night be last night, and this evening's a new evening. Or this daytime, nighttime? I might have missed it.
It's daytime.
Daytime. And
Afternoon
today's a
time.
new day.
All right. So I think all of you drank fairly
I think Shane
heavily
froze
last
up.
night. Memory is a little hazy. Oh, sorry,
You
I
were
did,
freezing
didn't
up and dropping in and
Um,
out for a second there.
Can you hear me okay here?
Yeah.
Seems fine now.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
if everyone was drinking last night, then Arthur was just the guy who was like doing handstands on the bar for drinks.
Fair enough. So if everyone was drinking last night, then I'm going to start out by getting you all to make a composure test to see how well you have recovered. So this is partly just to introduce the test mechanics and give them a bit of a test drive. So you're all, if you just jump into the dice room, if anyone needs the link, let me know and I'll post it again. I'll just chuck it in the chat anyway, just to make it simpler. So to make a composure test, the difficulty for this composure test is 4, so you're trying to equal or beat 4. You're going to start by deciding how many points from your composure pool you're going to spend, and the starting value for all your pools is whatever the rating is, if that makes sense. So if you start with a rating of 6, then your pool will be 6, and then one thing I should mention is that refreshers may happen sometimes during the game, but you can expect generally that everything will refresh about every other session. So you have about 2 sessions to play with these values. So once you've chosen how many points you're going to spend, roll 1d6, add the points that you spent, and let me know if you beat or exceed 4.
Do we get any kind of benefit for exceeding 4?
You do not.
Okay. Do we get any kind of penalty for missing the roll?
Yeah, so if you miss the roll, you're going to get your first injury card, reflecting the seriousness of your hangover.
Okay. And then you said that there are ways to kind of reset and refresh the injuries and the shocks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You'll go into those when we need to know about them, I take it?
Yeah, so I mean, part of the intention here is that the consequences will be low and they'll be easy to deal with. So if you blow your roll, we'll all see how the cards work, and then, it's not a consequence that you need to be too worried about.
Gotcha.
So it looks like Caroline has succeeded.
If I didn't have a good head for drink, I'd have been in great trouble a long time ago.
And sorry, just one thing I should mention is you can make a test without spending any points. Even if you don't have any points in that ability, you can just roll a d6. Arthur, were you spending any points on that, or is that a miss for you?
Straight roll. It's a miss.
Okay, so let's see. So basically, whenever you encounter a hazard, for example, these hangovers, when you make the test, there are 2 cards that are associated with each hazard or each combat encounter, a minor and a major version of the same injury or the same shock. If you fail with a margin of 1, you take the minor effect card, and if you fail with a margin of 2 or more, you take the major effect card. So I think that the only failure that we saw there is a margin of 1 for Arthur. Is that right?
Right, because if I rolled a 4, it would have been a success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to give you the minor injury card. Now, one thing I should say about these cards is that I have not figured out an elegant or efficient way to distribute these online. So let me see. The way I'm going to do this is there's a cards tab on the character keeper. And you'll see that the top part includes your injury cards, and if you scroll down far enough, you'll come to a section for shock cards. And I'm just going to insert the hangover card for Nicholas. Bear with me for 1 sec. And I've put your player names rather than character names there just so we can reuse it as we shift from setting to setting. Okay, so if people want to have a look at what a card looks like, it's slightly bigger than the field, which is annoying. Some cards will have a mechanical effect. This one doesn't. The only mechanical effect of this card that you'd need to worry about is that if you do end up with 3 of them, then you're retired from play. You'll see that this one says that after 1 or more scenes, you can discard by complaining that others don't care enough about your hangover. So anytime you do that after this scene, you can discard the card, just delete it from the thing. There's also space in the column on your character keepers if you want to add the details of the cards there. I just didn't want to have to paste the large images there.
Mm-hmm.
So mostly you're all abiding quite well this morning. The big news in your sort of milieu is that the police are looking for a young man named Balthazar, also an American, art student in Paris, somebody that you would all know or at least know of. Elizabeth, I think that you know him perhaps particularly well. He had mentioned to you some publishing connections that he had, a friend who owned a publishing house who might be able to help you get some of your work into print. And I think you know that in addition to his residence, where the police have been unable to find him, he maintained a studio that you know the address of, the location of. And I would like to ask you what you noticed in his studio the last time you were there that struck you as somewhat strange.
Sorry, what was the guy's name?
His name's Balthazar.
Balthazar, that's right. I think let's see. I think Balthazar's place, I noticed it was odd that he had the like all of his study and his work, they're all put in the studio in a way that is wrong against the light, so that it would sort of like cast a shadow over him and therefore make it difficult to work during the day.
Nice. And Caroline, what had Balthazar promised to get for you? Or give to you? Brandon?
Mute is the devil. We had promised to give me an emerald pendant that the two of us saw in Monsieur Dubois' jewelry store
Nice.
on the high street that I admired. And he says, "Well, then you shall have it, dear."
Mm-hmm. And Arthur, I think my question for you is why you don't trust Balthazar.
That's an interesting question. I think I'm overly judgmental of people sometimes, and I've had conversations with him that seemed like very normal conversations to any outside observer, but some of the mannerisms that he exhibited while we were having these conversations made me question, is he speaking his heart or is he like feeding me lines?
Mm-hmm.
And they did not align. Some of the things that he told me did not align with information that Caroline had given me. And obviously, I'm going to trust Caroline over Balthazar.
Yeah. And Ada, I think for you, just more of an open question. Are your feelings toward Balthazar positive, negative? Do you have much of a relationship with him? What are your feelings about the news that the police are seeking him?
I would have to care about him in some way, shape, or form for that news to concern me in any way, shape, or form. He exists. He is a useful tool for Caroline. Perhaps he'll benefit Elizabeth in some way. Arthur is overly judgmental because Arthur has bad judgment quite frequently, as Arthur just showed us all last night. I have no opinion about Balthazar. He's there. He is a presence. He is. I take as much notice of him as I would a wastebasket.
Nice. So, Elizabeth, it sounds like you're going to face somewhat of an uphill battle to convince your friends that they should help you try and find Balthazar, find out what's happened to him, what's going on. What do you say?
I think I don't know if Elizabeth has any persuasive argument other than just being like, distraught.
Which is compelling.
I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, this is as far as Elizabeth's concerned, a lost opportunity, and I think Elizabeth is kind of whiny and bratty in a way about that being taken out from under her, because she's not a responsible person necessarily, but she definitely thinks that any slightest inconvenience, including the disappearance of Balthazar, is something she wants to investigate.
Elizabeth, there have to be at least a dozen publishers within a block. I could probably throw a glass and hit 2 right now. Why does this one matter so much? He's not even a publisher for you. He's someone who says he can put you in contact with a publisher. Caroline, what is it that what is that word that you use when a man says he can do something for you?
Speaking.
I want to see when Ada is talking like that, like Elizabeth is clearly dramatic, and then when Ada poses the question, sorry, was it Ada or Brandon? Sorry, I don't have Brandon's character name here.
Oh, sorry.
Caroline.
Let me put it in Caroline.
Yeah, it was
Ada was
Caroline.
posing the question.
Yeah, it was yeah, she just sort of like snaps and says like, because none of those publishers said they like my not like those publishers are nice and fine, but this is the first one that said they actually like my work. Yeah.
Caroline, what is it? What's that word that you use when a man says he likes something that a woman does?
Conversation, breathing for some of them, I'm going to say.
Bless you.
Yeah. So.
Yes. They'll all say that. He does have money, though, which many of them don't.
Mm-hmm.
Look, Elizabeth, how long has he been gone anyway? I mean, people disappear for a day or two. That's not unusual.
It is unusual for Balthazar. He has
Oh.
a number of going concerns that would suffer if he wasn't present.
I hadn't noticed.
Things he needs to keep as well. Most of his business dealings are not, shall we say, out in the open.
I was
Really?
going to say, a man like him, will surely go note. Her disappearance should be noticed. He has things to sign. Galas to put his name to.
I am inclined to frame ahead here just to a scene where you do follow up on the investigation, unless there's other stuff that people want to play out in this scene in the cafe.
I am kind of curious how many publishers are in the cafe at this moment.
Well, I think that you could plausibly use a push from an ability like Belle Letters, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, to have a publisher be present. But I think that the kind of cafe that the four of you drink at is maybe a little bit lower class for the notable publishers, at least of Paris.
Oh, I didn't say notable ones. I mean, the disreputable ones are in some ways more preferable because, well, they're honest.
I'm not sure that is that how Elizabeth would feel? Well, like, does Elizabeth want to be published just anywhere? Does Elizabeth want to be published in, a notable underground press? Does she want to be published by, I don't know, the Paris Review? I'm not sure if that was a going concern in the 1890s.
I don't know. I know you're asking this as a GM. Now, I don't know who'd be asking that in real life, but Elizabeth's answer to that question would be like, a very desperate, frustrated, I don't know. As I was telling you in the chat here, like, as far as Elizabeth is concerned, this is a long summer. This is what the modern millennial calls a gap year. You know what I mean? It's just, studies are a fun thing to do. And, she only takes it seriously insofar as it indulges her fancies and her interests.
I'll sigh and say, and just yell, does anyone here publish perhaps French letters?
A few hands are raised. A few people look around, interested.
This one right here, she's looking to publish something. So anything you'd have to talk to her in greater detail, but she's looking to publish things.
So a gentleman does approach your table at this point. He offers Elizabeth. Well, sorry, he takes Elizabeth's hand, draws it up to his lips for a kiss, and he introduces himself as Octave Fontaine. asks you in French. I'm assuming that all of you have some conversational French, enough to get by. Asks you in French what exactly you write.
Elizabeth presents her current work, her current passion work, which is a study of the arrondissements and sort of like how the layout of Paris is, even though it came together phenomenologically, it is a living and breathing organism, and it's like its various passages are like, arteries, really heady stuff that sort of like takes urban studies into the realm of like, I guess, a pseudoscience, if you will.
So I think that he takes this in, and he replies, "Oh, an American's view of our cities. I'm sure it would be fascinating."
Just because I don't like it, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Elizabeth yet, but she is at my table. I will reach into my belt, which is a heavy leather belt, and I will bring out a small hammer and place it on the table next to me, and I will look at him expectantly.
I will say, but don't you know, monsieur, that the foreigner's viewpoint is very much à la mode these days in the Salon de Monsieur Dupin. Is all anyone could talk about. One feels that the intelligentsia of Paris have become a trifle bored with some of the facets of their own beautiful culture. And so they look now to the rude, unsophisticated American to see what the naive, savage viewpoint is on something. And some people find it very exciting, very sexual, even thrilling, very powerful. And I'll spend a push of culture.
Mm-hmm. What are you getting for that, or what are you hoping for?
Oh, to persuade him that in fact this is a courant.
Great. So he will look back and forth, his eyes sort of visibly left and right from the hammer on the table to Caroline's eyelashes. And finally he says, "You make a fine point, mademoiselle." And almost like a magic trick, he has a card in his hand, a business card, which he passes to Elizabeth without looking at her, without breaking eye contact with Caroline. He says, I would be honored to look over your friend's manuscript, and perhaps you could tell me more about your opinions on writing and culture over dinner sometime. And he will extend another card towards you, Caroline.
I will take it and make it vanish with the same aplomb that he had produced it.
Skilled with your hands as well, I see.
Her hands may be skilled. Yours can be made less so. And I tap the hammer.
You are indeed a charming group of young Americans, but I must excuse myself. I hope that you will share your manuscript with me. And perhaps we can discuss further what we might share in future. And he
Charmed, monsieur.
Discreetly withdraws from the table and the cafe, looking excitedly over his shoulder to make sure Ada is not following him.
And as soon as he does, I turn to Ada and I go, "Eee, would you really have hit him?"
Why else does one present a hammer?
Oh, you are too much.
It is true that when the only tool that you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I also have chisels.
Oh, I'm glad you didn't take one of those out.
He probably would have gotten more excited.
There are those who would, if you ever are interested. I hope you never are.
My chisels are for art.
Oh, believe me, some of these people appreciate an artist. But that's neither here nor there.
But Elizabeth, we've resolved your problem. You now have a publisher. Now, if you wish, we can go look for Balthazar with a clear conscience, knowing that we are doing so for the utmost and the most pure reasons, not merely because you need him for money or for publishing or something else.
Arthur, I'm curious how this scene strikes you, watching these two friends of yours just sort of nakedly manipulate this gentleman, either with threats of violence or, sort of intimations of sexuality. You're muted.
So I think through this whole scene, Arthur is just like seen slouching a little bit too much, cigarette in his hand that he never seems to make up to his lips, and is just like obviously not really fully engaged because of his over exuberance yesterday evening. I think that Arthur has seen this sort of behavior before, so Caroline doesn't surprise him at all. It takes it all at fairly face value, and Ada threatens with the hammer, but he hasn't seen it used yet. So it's like, yeah, that's just kind of the way it goes.
Interesting. Hasn't seen the hammer used yet. All right. So sometime later, perhaps a little refreshed for some coffee or absinthe or whatever you enjoy in the early afternoon, you have travelled to Montmartre, where Elizabeth knows the studio that Balthazar maintains is upstairs in an apartment building. As you enter the front door of the building, there is a terrible smell. And as you climb the stairs, you quickly identify the cause or the source of this smell as a man reeking of alcohol and I don't know, some sort of rot, lying apparently asleep in the corner of the stairwell.
The stairwell in a respectable place.
It is not so respectable a place.
No.
Do we see this man like right when we open the doors, like the alcohol man
so I think,
is there?
Yeah, like you look up, the staircase extends in front of you as you open the front door, and you see that this man is passed out at the top of the stairs, in the corner of the stairwell.
I think Elizabeth
sleeping.
I take out a perfumed handkerchief and dab it to my nostrils.
I think Elizabeth actually rushes up to get closer to the man.
He seems to be sleeping. You can hear him snoring lightly.
I'm sure he smells awful.
He does indeed smell awful.
Arthur also rushes up, more concerned about the rot smell than the alcohol smell.
Mm-hmm.
What can I ascertain about the rot smell? People get drunk all the time. That's fine.
I mean, he's lying sort of curled up, face down in the stairwell. You can tell that he's breathing. He's not dead.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can try and examine him a little more. You can try and talk to him, but beyond the fact that there is a smell of severe rot, you can't really tell what that is without.
And I think that maybe that's kind of normal for lower crusts that find themselves collapsed in a stairwell. So once observing that he seems to be in good health otherwise.
It's not normal, Nicholas.
He's not normal.
Well, I mean, no, he probably, what's the word for it when you have bad circulation?
Oh, yes.
Gangrenous?
Ooh.
There, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely strikes you, Arthur, as out of place and unusual.
Okay.
Is anyone going? If nobody's going to examine the body, we'll just move on.
Oh no!
Arthur?
So I was just waiting for all of his stuff to solve.
Sure.
And yeah,
Arthur,
no,
Arthur, you're the The one with the medical background. You should look at him.
Definitely.
All right.
But like Elizabeth is the first to recklessly, to sort of like honestly just like try to
Um,
rouse this man.
I'm going to grab Elizabeth's bells and try to prevent her from touching this filthy, diseased individual.
There you go.
Elizabeth, do you allow Caroline to restrain you, or
Yeah.
Caroline,
So,
do you really care
Nicholas?
about this man?
No, but I thought you might think him an interesting anatomical specimen. I don't know. Isn't that what you do?
He is interesting. Perhaps I will recall this at a later time and
Yes, strikingly
paint it
odoriferous.
out. Quite the
Arthur,
pose.
You were training to be a doctor, were you not?
Yes.
Have you no regard for the downtrodden among our society?
I
That
think
says
he'll be
that all on by the boards? You can't
I
tell
mean,
if she's
he
being
obviously
serious.
had a rough night, but if you're so concerned about him, we'll see what we can figure out. And I sprawl him out on the ground to examine him.
So as you roll him over, you immediately identify the source of the rotting smell. He has a very badly infected tracheotomy scar on his neck, a set of stitches that have become completely septic. He doesn't wake as you turn him over. He continues to snore, if anything, more loudly.
This man has
He's
had
a
some
hole in this.
botched procedures. That doesn't look good at all. And there's it's been treated, right? The tracheotomy, like you can see where there would have been stitches or whatever. It doesn't look like a wound of like an encounter with anyone.
No, it appears to be like a surgical procedure that has become infected.
Yeah, this guy definitely needs some medical attention. But it looks like he'll survive. I think perhaps perhaps we should help him get to a hospital.
How strange.
Strange.
I mean, a hole in his neck like that.
I mean, that is just a botched medical procedure. Whoever performed that did not know what they were doing.
Why would anyone? Elizabeth asks, not me. Elizabeth asks, like, why would anyone even, do such an operation? That doesn't make any sense. Like, who has need of a hole in their neck?
Is it to remove a tumor? Something awful like that?
Nicholas, the player, does not know the appropriate time for a tracheotomy.
So it would be most likely to deal with some sort of obstruction in the airway.
Right. Yeah, so this is done if you can't have oxygen pass and you have to create a hole so that a person can breathe. But usually they're done a lot cleaner and neater than this. And I doubt that he could talk with a hole in his neck like that.
That's probably right.
Oof. Disgusting. Poor fellow.
What do you know about hospitals here in Paris? Should we help him get medical attention?
The hospital, I mean, some of the hospitals here in Paris are superb, but you have to have money.
It's not like a public service in France?
There are public hospitals for certain, but there is the matter of getting him over there. There's no public ambulance, I don't believe.
Does that make sense? We will help this man. We're not going to get into trouble. Like, what if they ask us, if we had anything to do with this?
It could absolutely be trouble. And filthy and disgusting, but we want to hold that against him.
Well, perhaps we should. Well, he's probably more comfortable here than on the street.
I just will flag that if you did want to take him to the hospital, you probably know that there is a place called the Hospital of Charity that provides services to the indigent. Not the finest quality of medical care, but if you were to try and find, some medical assistance for a random drunk of no apparent means, that's probably where you would go.
Of course, you'd have to pay a carriage to take him there.
Yeah.
I'll sigh and say, fine. I'll do it. And
Pay
I
the
will
carriage,
literally
right?
walk over to him and pull him up to his probably noodle-like legs. I can't imagine that he's any more conscious now than he was when he was on the ground. And walk outside to hail a carriage.
All right. And are you just popping him in a carriage to go to the hospital, or are you planning to go with him?
I'll make sure he gets there.
Yeah.
Ada, you're so strong.
I was going to say Elizabeth helps Ada lift this man.
But she
All right.
doesn't.
Caroline,
So,
please take care of Elizabeth and Arthur.
I
while get back.
I will. I'll try to prevent them from dying. Do get back soon, though. We rely on you.
Ada, if you wanted to, I think you could spend a push to have, to ensure he gets to the hospital.
I'm kind of curious about why he's got a trach hole in the side of his neck as a
Okay.
player.
Sure. All right. So you head off in a cab. The other three of you are going to head inside. Is that right?
Yes, we're looking for Mr. Balthazar.
Okay. So you continue on up the stairs. You arrive at the hall, the start of the hallway where Balthazar's studio is. As you arrive, Arthur, you recognize the man at the far end of the hall who is entering another of the rooms on this hall. It's the gentleman that you've had so much trouble painting recently. Do you think that seeing him, outside the studio will help at all with capturing his likeness?
I think that I haven't. So it's kind of a cycle, right? You go in, you have the appointment, try to make the painting, you throw a temper tantrum, you destroy the painting, and then later you call to apologize and to say, hey, I'd like to try again. I think I haven't made that call yet. So this is kind of awkward. It's kind of like, oh, hey, how are you doing? I'm sorry about 3 nights ago.
He glances at you, but he doesn't really acknowledge or reply to you. He fairly quickly opens the door at the far end of the hall and steps inside.
Perfect. I did not want to deal with that right now anyway.
All right. So, Elizabeth, are you going to knock? Just push the door open? What are you thinking here?
Probably a knock, yeah.
All right. So there's no answer when you knock on Balthazar's door. What do you do?
Is there a hole? Is there a keyhole to look into?
Try to open the door first here.
Elizabeth leans in and tries to push the door open.
So you find that it's not locked, but
Oh.
it's not easy to open either. Something has been pushed up against it from the inside.
Arthur, help her.
Yeah, Elizabeth asks Arthur, sort of like gestures to, help her push.
Arthur does put his full weight against the door with his shoulder, trying to push it open.
And what you find is between the three of you, or at least if you give Arthur enough time, the door does start to open. And you realize that it's hard to open because all the belongings in the room have been sort of pushed back against it. But you gradually
Good Lord.
crane it open. Sorry, what was that?
It's good Lord.
You eventually, open it enough that you can kind of squeeze through or look through and see what's inside. And
See,
again,
Elizabeth, this is what I'm talking about. He's not forthright. He's not normal. Something's wrong with this man. Who does this?
How was I supposed to know that beforehand?
No. Excuse
Yeah,
me, Elizabeth, dear. No, Arthur. This isn't normal for him. He's a criminal and an eccentric, but not like this.
I just want to say it. What's really weird in this game for me is that because of all them Hollywood movies, I keep hearing in my head British accents because they keep portraying French characters with British accents, and I know that's not right.
So, well, once one can wriggle through and pull a few things out of the way of the door, then perhaps we can all come in and see what else there is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So once you do sort of wriggle your way inside, you find that all the belongings in the room, including, mattress and couch, but also pots and pans, cutlery, papers, paintings and photographs, just all kinds of belongings. Definitely, the sort of things that you remember noticing in a somewhat strange arrangement last time you were here, Elizabeth. But the strange arrangement last time was much less dramatic than everything backed up against the door. In the middle of the room, there is a large, ornate mirror with dark glass inside it. And it's almost like the belongings that are backed up against the door have been arranged around this mirror like a kind of audience, or like facing towards the mirror. There is a typewriter sitting on the floor in front of the mirror. There are several mostly melted down candles arranged around it. And chalked on the floor in large white letters, the message, "Not upon us, O King, not upon us," with some sort of strange symbol written alongside it. Elizabeth, what do you say?
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Ada will certainly want to see that.
Caroline, do you want to?
Closer. Sorry. Elizabeth moves closer to the mirror.
You move closer to look more closely, or what are you doing as you approach the mirror?
Like standing where the typewriter is, and I guess closer to the print, the white letters in the ground. Elizabeth sort of like moves slowly and starts trying to peer at the mirror from the perspective of the typewriter.
So one thing that you notice as you get closer is that there are a pair of small smeared blood stains just in front of the typewriter. The mirror, from this angle, you notice that there are more symbols of some kind carved around the frame. And you have a feeling of being watched. All of you will notice having worked your way inside, that even though it's clear that Balthazar isn't here, it's a bed sit that's been turned into a studio. There's nowhere else for someone to go. It's hard to see how Balthazar could have gotten out of this room with all the belongings piled up right against the door the way they were.
And the window is barred.
and latch from the inside. Caroline, what do you do?
I'm going to idly pick up a fireplace poker just to calm myself. And melt upon us, O King. Oh, I wish Ada were here. She knows more about this sort of thing.
Elizabeth starts rifling through the books of Balthazar, and I guess I would use research or yeah.
Is there anything in particular that you're looking for?
I guess I just want to know, like I don't know a lot about. Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, something with these words or this symbol.
Yeah,
this
strange symbol
mark.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know Balthazar very well, so now it's almost like seeing all this crazy shit is an invitation to learn more about this person through his belongings.
And the typewriter has no paper in it. Yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth, I don't think that you'll find anything that sort of accounts for the writing or the symbol amongst his books.
That's fair.
Which, again, are not organized on a shelf, but are interspersed with everything else that he owned in this massive pile by the door.
Here, Arthur, I push a pen and a bit of paper at you, and a pad at you that I found.
Oh, well.
Sketch this.
All right. I'm still trying to figure out how he got out of here. That doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't. Something's very, very strange.
Yeah, it'll take just a few minutes. Let me give this a quick sketch. And I do a detailed sketch of the symbols that we see and the words. Try and get that part of the scene because it seems central.
Don't forget the bloodstains and where things are. The candles here, the typewriter.
Right, the candles.
Caroline, let Arthur work.
Arthur, I'm going to get you to make a difficulty 4 composure test.
All right.
As you willingly copy down these symbols.
Oh, yeah.
And I am going to spend 2 composure on that.
Okay.
So a d6 plus 2.
Caroline, your general abilities ratings are blank. Your general abilities on the sheet are blank.
They're showing up for me.
I see them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I see them as well. Yeah.
Let me refresh them. Oh, there they are. Lol.
Okay, well, you got a good roll, so you're fine.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, you experience no negative effects as you make these notes in this inscription. I will come back to all of you in the apartment in just a moment, but I wanted to check in with Ada. Oh, sorry, go on.
Just a quick question. Do I get creeped out at all? I don't experience like any mechanical ill effects, but do I experience any just anything? It's just a scene.
I mean, I think that you probably all experience some level of being creeped out by the strangeness of this scene, but not. I don't know. I'm not sure quite what I'm trying to express. Nothing beyond that. There's not like an additional supernatural aura or anything like that you would feel.
So I'm just like, this is all creepy, and now I've made a picture of it.
You've made a picture of some strange occult symbols. This person you don't like seems to have impossibly vanished from inside this room.
Yeah.
There's some blood on the floor.
I think
otherwise.
The one thing I want to ask Caroline is if she knows if he practices magic or escapism. And we can cut without the answer. That's fine.
Yeah, let's cut.
Well, actually, I just want to mention one other thing that Arthur will notice, because you have natural history. As you make some more detailed observations about the room,
Yeah.
you notice, I mean, it almost seems too ridiculous to comment, but the way that things have been arranged, at least in part, looks like the way that a large cat would, a lion, a tiger, something like that, would sort of arrange its nest or its bedding or its lair. There's a place where some of the softer items pushed together look like they've been tamped down, like something lay atop them. And there are a handful of what seem to be pigeon bones scattered near that spot through the other debris.
I don't mention it because it sounds crazy, and they already
Yeah.
think I'm crazy.
Yeah. All right. Ada, the gentleman does start to sort of somewhat rouse as you get nearer to the hospital. He's not really able to communicate with you. If he tries to speak, rasping noises come from the hole in his throat. What do you do on arriving at the hospital?
I'll pick him up and carry him in. I mean, pick him up to the extent that I throw his arm around my shoulder and grab it, and I kind of drag him into the hospital, calling for help.
All right. So a nurse and an orderly will approach and take some of the burden from you and ask in French first, and then in English if you prefer, what's happened to this man.
Well, I'm despite my boorish behavior, I actually do speak French.
Mhm.
And so I explained that I was calling upon a friend, and I found this man in the hallway of, and I'm very careful to stress this, of her building. Because that is, of course, what a woman would be doing. I mean, no woman calls upon a gentleman.
Of course.
No lady does. So I'm very much playing into the mores and manners of the place.
And she's calling for a doctor as she talks to you. She says, do you know this gentleman's name?
I don't. I found him in the stairwell of this building. He's obviously been drinking, but when I tried to rouse him so that he could get upstairs or go to wherever he was going, I saw this hole in his neck. It looks as though somebody has tried to suture it, but it's obviously infected.
Yeah, she sort of reels back a little bit when she realizes what you're talking about, the source of the smell. The man at this point is becoming visibly distressed. Now that he's awake, perhaps, or he may have seen something, he sort of starts to, almost paw at your clothes. He's clearly trying to say something, but unable to express anything.
And I call for, I pantomime writing to see if maybe he could write whatever it is that he's trying to say.
He nods. He nods so aggressively that he clearly causes himself some pain.
I'm sure I have some paper in my little apron and probably at least some sort of pencil or some chalk that I can hand him to write.
So the nurse is definitely discouraging this. She's saying, we must get this man to the doctor immediately, please. And, she's leading him through to a bed where he can be laid down, where he can be examined. But he quickly takes the pencil from you and begins to sketch very roughly. The nurse is sort of saying, the doctor will be here any moment. You must leave. You must leave. The concern
if I
in the man's
leave, the
eyes,
doctor will not know the state in which he was found.
I think the state is quite evident. The man passes you his drawing. It's folded so that you don't see what he's drawn immediately. But the doctor has arrived. And he says, thank you, I can take it from here. Ada, the last time you saw this man, the thing you noticed most about the doctor was his misshapen body, but that was, when he was high overhead leaping across rooftops. What do you notice about him now that you're speaking to him face to face?
He's standing up straight.
Hmm.
Quite straight, in fact. And all of his limbs appear to be the same length, or at least the proper length.
Hmm.
On the rooftops, he moved more like a gorilla.
Hmm. All right. He looks you right in the eye. He says, "Thank you for your help. You should go rejoin your friends. This man will be
Excuse
taken
me?
care of."
I didn't say anything about friends.
I assume that a beautiful young woman has many friends. Now, you must allow me to attend to this man.
Of
The
course.
the man that you brought in is much more distressed now than he was before. He's flailing. Several orderlies have come in to hold him down. If you step away, the doctor will pull the curtains shut around the bed.
You know, I'm going to take hold of the flailing man's hand. Just holding his hand. Not trying to restrain him, just holding his hand just as reassurance. What does that do?
It will not calm him. These terrible moans are coming from him. He's clearly trying to say something that he can't express.
I'm going to look at the note.
So the note is very rough. He's drawn it quickly, and obviously he's not in the best condition to be drawing. But it looks to show a set of shelves, a set of bookshelves filled with books. Maybe a library or something similar.
Mm-hmm.
And he nods again aggressively as he sees you look at the note. This time so aggressively that the stitches begin to tear and a horrible black bile starts to pump from the wound in his neck. I think we'll cut away from that scene here. Let's take our next break here, if that's all right. We'll take maybe a 10-minute break and we'll come back about 36 minutes past the hour.
We're playing for about another half hour, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I was wondering, does it make sense to maybe play through and cut out early, or go ahead and take that break and come back and play for another 20 minutes?
I wouldn't mind playing through.
Sorry, I'm going to need the break. So
Okay, totally.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. All right. So see you in about 10.
Okay. That is your cat.
It is.
Okay.
It's one of our many cats. We have 5.
I thought we had a lot with 2. We had 3 for a while, and that was nearly unmanageable. And
We combined 2 households.
oh, okay. Are they all getting along with each other?
Let's see. Well, one of them is virtual, in that he is Schrodinger's cat. Sometimes he's in hiding, and sometimes he's not.
Okay.
So he's not a problem for any of the other cats since he disappears when they are around. Otherwise, generally speaking, yes, except for occasionally in the middle of the night when there is a horrible screeching and someone has transgressed someone else's personal space boundary. We're not 100% sure who the individuals involved are when that happens, but we have a suspicion.
I mean, all cats are gray in the dark, right?
Yeah.
Matthew, are you back with us? Okay. So I might pick up again then with Ada's scene, and we'll come back to the other 3 a little later. Ada, do you leave the hospital or leave the little sort of bedroom that he's been curtained off into, or do you stay? Like, what are you going to do now?
There is, given his reactions, there is absolutely no way that I am leaving this man alone, particularly not when I know who this doctor is. Or rather, I should say, I know what this doctor does at night.
Mm-hmm. Well, the nurses and the orderlies are now sort of turning towards you, going to start trying to, I mean, at least they're gesturing in a way that indicates that they will force you to leave if you don't voluntarily. What do you do?
I will say, in the highest French I can manage, that I will absolutely not depart the premises, and if they wish to take this matter up with my solicitor, and I will rattle off a law firm that I have heard of, but no, absolutely no one at, but I'm sure is quite impressive. And I will stress that they can take that matter up with my attorneys.
I think that they all turn towards the doctor, who again looks at you, and he says that he will need to perform surgery, and that nobody may be present who has not, who is not appropriately sterile. The risks to the patient who already suffers a severe infection would be terribly grave. If you must stay, then please withdraw to the waiting room, or this man will die.
Is there a wash basin handy with soap?
Do you want to spend a push to have a wash basin handy with soap?
You know what? The push that I want is to basically say, fine, I know how to handle a chisel, and I know how to wash my hands. So, yeah, I'll spend a push for that.
All right. The surgeon looks at you curiously, surprised that you're so determined to stay. And he'll start asking you about what your relationship to this man is.
I found him. And we're all foundlings in some way or another, are we not?
Go you.
Are you always so dedicated to the things that you find?
When they seem to be in need of help and in danger, yes.
There's like a beat after you say that, and the curtain behind you is pulled aside, and you see Caroline, and she says, Ada, I'm so glad I found you. Arthur is in danger now. You must come with me. Please.
I dare say, Caroline, this has to do with that foolishness at the theater last night when he tried to jump on stage, doesn't it?
It's worse. It's urgent. I will flag here that if you want, you can make a sense trouble test.
Oh, you mean I can't just automatically know that she's lying because she's not responding to that, or she's like reacting to a blatant lie?
Yeah, you can. You can draw whatever conclusions you want. But just wanted to flag the mechanic.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that mechanic then. And you said that's sense trouble?
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
So,
if I'm not already sensing trouble here, I don't know what's wrong with me. But I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 points. And I'll go ahead and roll that D6.
The rules specify that even if I'm telling you the difficulty for other things, I should not reveal the difficulty for sense trouble rolls.
Okay.
So I will take that advice.
There's a 5.
All right. You're not sure how you know, but not only is that not Caroline, that whatever it is not a human being.
I mean, I have studied some strange things. So, let me ask you this. Would I need to spend another push to have learned an incantation at some point in my more esoteric studies to ward off evil?
Oh, that is an interesting question. I think that probably would tend to be a push. I just want to have a look at the description of occultism.
Sure thing.
So this is what I think. You don't need to spend the push to have learnt an incantation or to learn something that you could perform.
Okay.
But what you'd need the push for is to already have some sort of ward that would be useful to you right now.
Very well. I will go ahead and spend that second push then. By the way, how do we refresh our pushes?
So the pushes will refresh at the start of each scenario,
Okay.
which will be roughly every other session.
Okay. So I will go ahead and spend that second push.
All right. Tell us about the ward. What does it look like? What form does it take?
It's in Latin, and it involves an invocation against evil, appealing to a god, some form of a god that I'm not entirely sure exists, along with some complicated hand motions, almost as if I'm drawing a sigil in air.
Mm-hmm. And whatever this thing is that looks like Caroline, it starts to step towards you, and you see the rage in its eyes only for a second when it realizes what you're doing. And then its face again, just placid and pleasant, just like Caroline herself often is. And it says, all right, I can wait. And we'll cut here back to the others, back in the apartment, back in the studio. Elizabeth, you were looking through the books in the studio. So you didn't find anything that related specifically to the symbol or the words. But what you did find that was of some interest was some sort of like bank book or accounting ledger or something like that, some records about Balthazar's finances. And what they show that's a little curious is that Balthazar has been living for the last month or so on the proceeds of a statue that he pawned at one of Paris's notable pawn shops, the Monde de Pied. The amount that he got for this statue is pretty extraordinary. So the records that you find don't tell you much about what the statue is, only that he pawned it and that he got so many francs for it that he's been able to live off it for a month, and seems like he should still have some money remaining based on these records. The pawn ticket is also recorded there, or kept in the bank book. Caroline, what are you doing while Arthur sketches and Elizabeth looks through the books?
Fretting about Ada. Thinking someone should have gone with her, but I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of something that doesn't make any sense. There's no one here to ask.
Just noticed the chat. So Caroline, you're probably the first person to notice somebody looking in through the cracked door. a woman. She has kind of a dark face. She has a big halo of frizzy hair, and she is conspicuously peering in through the crack at the three of you. Do you do anything?
Of course. I say, pardon me, madame, but Mr. Balthasar is not at home. Can I help you?
Are you the superintendent?
No, I'm not a superintendent. I'm a friend of Monsieur Balthasar's. How can I assist you? And I will step out into the corridor so that she doesn't have to peer through the crack in the door.
I thought I heard people in Mr. Balthazar's apartment. I thought it might be the superintendent. I've been wanting to speak to him about my ceiling. And she sort of gestures to the neighboring apartment to indicate that she lives next door.
Show me what is the matter with your ceiling, and I will relay it to Monsieur Balthasar.
Very well. Just through here. Thank you for your kindness, young lady. And she leads you into the neighboring apartment. And what you'll see as you enter, well, I mean, you'll smell something first. This time it's the smell of a fine meal, roast beef or something similar. There is a family seated at a nice dining table, somewhat dimly lit. But it doesn't take you long to realize that the family are all dead. That, in fact, their faces have been removed, flayed in some way. What do you do?
I turn back to the woman.
Would you like to make a sense trouble test?
Mm-hmm. I surely would.
Oh, nice. So you didn't notice him at first as you entered this room, but there's a man in a butler uniform who's been standing immobile in the shadows behind the table. And as you turn back towards the woman to talk to her, he lunges from the shadows, swinging a straight razor. And that, I think, is where we'll wrap up the game for this week, and we'll pick it up there next time. I do, of course, want to go around for some stars and wishes. Maybe we'll just go left to right across the character keeper, if that works for everyone. So, Matthew, do you want to lead off?
Yeah. Yes. Stars and wishes. I'm having a great time with this. I really am very jazzed and excited about the everything that's been planted forward. I hope to be freaked out and weirded out even more in the sessions to come. Yeah, I feel like we've just scratched the surface. Everything is just an appetizer for all. And I think you did a great job, Shane. Like, sort of calmly presenting these unnerving things to us. So, I think they are a natural fit for the material. Yeah, and very cool. And I am pleasantly, happy with all the characters today. Especially Ada and Caroline. I feel Nicholas. Let me know how you feel about this. I feel like there are weird parents right now in this situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though we're all roughly in the same age as characters, I don't know. I feel like
But you and I are like divorced from this reality, and so they are
That
like
is-
our parents in this reality. It's like,
that is true. That is
what?
true.
Money? You have to track it? What's going on here?
Yeah. So yeah, great time. Wish us more weird, more freaky. I am Shane. The more you played enough with me already. The weirder and wackier you could, well, not even wacky in a silly way, but just sort of like whacked out kind of way, the better. So that's what I'm looking forward to, and I'm definitely looking forward to. I want to see. I want to see a situation. I mean, sorry if I'm inviting peril here. I want to see a situation where Ada and Caroline find a that can't, where their tongues can't get their way out. Help them find their way out. That would be very interesting, I think.
All right, thanks very much, Puckett.
So far, this is an absolute blast. One of the things that I always keep in mind with horror games or horror adjacent games is that the more a GM tries to ratchet up tension using their voice and like vocal effects and like raising their pitch and whatnot, the less creepy it actually seems. But when you're just like stating like it's the blandest thing possible, like you're reciting a recipe for macaroni and cheese or something like that, that's when it actually gets really creepy. And you're doing a fantastic job of that so far. Couldn't be happier with it. Nicholas, I love how you're playing Arthur. I mean,
Thanks.
kind of just this hesitant, reluctant, arguably frail character who's just kind of like squicked out by things and gets embarrassed by others. And, he's kind of reminding me of the character that Paul Reiser played in Aliens right now. but not like as greedy. Like just kind of like, oh, wait a minute, this is bad. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. No, I don't want to touch that. No, let's just go upstairs. Let's ignore that man in the hall. He's fine. He's just sleeping. So
Pay no attention. Moving on.
Exactly. Matthew, I haven't played with you a lot, but every time I've played with you so far has been a delight. It's been a lot of fun. I like how you're playing Elizabeth, just like kind of selfishly focusing on her. Just like, we have to find Balthazar. He was going to give me a publishing deal. Like, honey, there are plenty of publishers in this city. Just like, here's several. So I really like how you're playing Elizabeth so far. And I mean, the description that you had of her, like somebody who's just off at summer camp and is like doing this just for fun. It's like, oh God, that's going to blow up on you so quickly. I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Brandon, I like Caroline. I like the whole streetwise doxy part of the thing that you're getting into. And somebody who, I mean, I hesitate to say made good, because that would imply there was something wrong with what she was doing in the first place. But has learned how to get into higher echelons of society and manipulate them equally as effectively. So I'm really appreciating that characterization so far, and I can't wait to see what happens all next.
Awesome. Do you have any wishes?
I have plenty of wishes, but I'm not sure that at this point, I'm kind of inclined to just see where you go with the story, because I'm enjoying what you're doing so far. I wasn't expecting to be faced with some sort of shape-shifting doppelganger at the hospital, nor was I expecting to run face-to-face and be able to recognize that the doctor is the individual who runs across rooftops in the middle of the night. But, hey, I'm rolling with it.
I mean, who wakes up in the morning and thinks that, that's going to happen?
Look, you'd have to ask Arthur about that.
All right. Thanks very much, Puckett. Brandon?
I love everyone's characterizations, and I do like very much the way you're presenting this. It's lovely. Puckett's point is very well taken. I'm not going to retread other people's ground. I love Ada. In particular, though, especially her absolute unwillingness to budge in places where anybody would. And I just think it's a bloody shame that Caroline couldn't hear you say what you said about foundlings. Because it would have melted her. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see what happens next. And my only wish is is to get people back together, so that we can so that we can exchange information and or rescue one another.
I wonder why Caroline would be concerned about that in particular. Thanks very much, Brandon. And Nicholas.
Yeah, so Shane, I think I really like how you start just like super mundane and just kind of ratchet it up very matter of fact. I think it's been mentioned already, but it deserves re-mention because you did a phenomenal job. That was just super fun. I also think that it was masterfully done how you weaved in kind of the fears that we had or the things that we saw, that little line on it. And every time a character got isolated, I don't know if this was planned, but it was beautiful. Every time a character got isolated, they got to face some horrific terror. So if that wasn't planned, good job anyway. And if it was, that was perfect. I like all of our characters. I think they're super fun. I do think that Ada being strong for Arthur's weakness is something that I'm really enjoying. I do feel very manipulated by Caroline, and I'm glad that I am with Elizabeth right now because I think that we are kindred spirits. So I do feel like the characters mesh very well. As far as wishes, I think that this session, just kind of that progression to a tipping point, leaves us in a place where I don't have any wishes. My wish is just to see where this goes next.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. I had a great time and also love all the characters. I think it all came together really well, and the way you've been playing them has been really fun for me. I'm very excited for next week. I'm just going to end the recording now.